As I make this video, Pray for Hong Kong is trending on Twitter. So what's really going on over there? Can we trust what mainstream press is telling us about it? I think you know the answer to that question. For more than 3 months, people in Hong Kong gathered in the streets to protest a proposed extradition law. Critics say it would allow China to extradite dissenting students, journalists, and business people to the mainland where they could face prison for their views. Rallies and marches of tens of thousands grew to almost 2 million at their peak. Adrian Leong, a former Hong Kong resident and political activist in San Francisco, says, "I was very angry about the proposed law. Everyone could see themselves getting in trouble." But supporters of the Beijing government say the proposed law would only allow extradition of people accused of serious crimes, not political dissidents. They argue Western governments and media use the phony extradition issue to foment rifts between Hong Kong and the mainland. Nathan Rich, an American YouTube blogger living in China, says they want China to splinter and die. To sort out these competing claims, we got to understand some Hong Kong history. Starting in the late 1700s, the British East India Company illegally sold opium to China. By the 1830s, British and American entrepreneurs became fabulously wealthy selling opium while addicting millions of Chinese. When the Chinese government ordered the sales to stop, the British sent gunboats to Chinese ports and fought the First Opium War from 1839 to 1842. The Qing dynasty lost the war and was forced to cede Hong Kong Island to the British, along with parts of other port cities. The British launched the Second Opium War from 1853 to 1858, in which they seized more Chinese territory and forced China to legalize opium. For centuries, China had the world's largest economy, selling far more goods overseas than it imported. The Opium Wars were fought in the name of free trade, i.e., the rights of British and American drug barons to open up the Chinese market. Selling addictive drugs to China didn't end in the 19th century, though. During the reign of President Ronald Reagan, for example, the U.S. forced China, Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan to buy U.S.-made cigarettes, all in the name of opening their markets to free trade. By the 1980s, the People's Republic of China was emerging as a major world power, and Britain agreed to give up Hong Kong. In 1997, Britain returned Hong Kong to Chinese sovereignty with an agreement that it would maintain two different political and economic systems. It became known as One Country, Two Systems. This one country, two systems was a bold step, something never tried before. China would keep its socialist economy and Hong Kong would remain capitalist. Hong Kong would maintain governing institutions established by the United Kingdom, including independent courts, but also indirect election of top political leaders. The one country, two systems would last for 50 years. The Communist Party of China hoped that, given time, Hong Kong residents would come to see the advantages of socialism and voluntarily join the mainland. They also hoped that Hong Kong would be a model for integrating Taiwan into China. But Hong Kong had existed as a separate entity for well more than 100 years, and reunification wasn't going to be easy. Many Hong Kongers, as they're called, seek to maintain their capitalist institutions for as long as possible. They want direct election of political leaders and the judiciary that tilts their way in cases of disputes with Beijing. According to some Chinese analysts, Hong Kongers have developed their own identity. On paper, they're the same ethnic group, but they're culturally different. The roots of the current protests can be traced to the case of Chan Tong Kai. In February, he flew to Taiwan with his girlfriend, strangled her, stuffed her body in a suitcase, dumped her in a field, and flew back to Hong Kong. Even though he confessed, he couldn't be sent back to Taiwan because Hong Kong had no extradition treaty. By the way, Hong Kong does have extradition agreements with 20 countries, but not with China, Macau, or Taiwan. Hong Kong authorities couldn't charge Chan with a murder that took place elsewhere, so their court convicted him on a lesser charge and sentenced him to a few months in jail. Outrage over the Chan case led Hong Kong legislators to draft a law that would allow extradition to any country on a case-by-case basis. Taiwan later indicated it would not seek Chan's extradition, making the murder case moot. But the extradition issue remains on the table. And the question is, what's up with Taiwan? Are they not interested in convicting a murderer? A murderer who confessed to his murder, no less? So it's hard to understand what's going on there with the people in Taiwan. Critics claim the proposed law would enable China to extradite and imprison political dissidents from Hong Kong. But the bill's supporters point out that an extraditable offense must be a crime in both China and Hong Kong, which protects Hong Kongers from arbitrary arrest. And the law specifically prohibits extradition for political crimes. The bill literally says, quote, under the proposed change, a person could only be surrendered for crimes punishable in Hong Kong by more than 3 years imprisonment. In addition, the bill granted Hong Kong's chief executive the ability to review extradition requests and allows for 2 separate judicial review processes. And according to the chief executive's office, extradition would, quote, only cover 37 offenses punishable with imprisonment for 7 years or above, and none of them prohibits the exercise of the right to freedom of expression. But many people in Hong Kong simply don't trust Beijing. They cite examples when China remanded Hong Kong residents without following judicial procedures. One activist says the Communist Party of China no longer respects the 2 systems. It only respects one country. On March 31st, Hong Kongers marched and rallied against the proposed legislation. By June, the mostly peaceful protests grew to hundreds of thousands. On June 9th, organizers said 2 million people marched, while police put the number at 338,000. Then, in a pre-planned action on July 1st, hundreds of militants smashed their way into Hong Kong's legislative offices, where they destroyed furniture and sprayed anti-communist graffiti on the walls. They also draped the Union Jack flag over the speaker's podium. One analyst said displaying the British flag doesn't mean protesters want to return to British rule. Rather, they want Hong Kong to, quote, remain a special administrative region under Chinese sovereignty. They don't want Hong Kong to be just another Chinese city, end quote. Whatever the militants' intention, the opinion of some is that raising the British flag leaves the impression that they favor independence. And that plays into the hands of Western powers who have long sought to divide China. It's no coincidence and should be no surprise that most people in mainstream media unabashedly support the protesters and seek to excuse the violent actions. An opinion article in the Wall Street Journal urged readers to see the vandalism as, quote, an act of desperation after years of frustration. Hopefully, we won't see the Journal apply that same logic to Black Lives Matter protesters in the U.S. What a lot of people are saying is that Hong Kong is China. It's not an independent country. And they say any efforts toward independence angers mainland Chinese, not just the government in Beijing. Contrary to the impression left by the mainstream media, Hong Kong opinion is divided on the extradition law. On June 30th, tens of thousands gathered for a rally supporting extradition and backing the Hong Kong government. Legislators say they collected 700,000 verified signatures on a petition supporting the proposed law. But for now, the momentum is with the anti-government forces. Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam suspended the bill from consideration and on July 9th declared it dead. But critics say this isn't enough. They want her to withdraw the legislation completely and to resign. So demonstrations are likely to continue. The bottom line is that Hong Kong and China will be struggling for many years to determine exactly what one country, 2 systems really means. And this is also a good reminder that you can never allow yourself to underestimate the power of stupid people in large crowds. And you can never deny the fact that politicians in any country seek to gain more wealth and power from those crowds. Leave your thoughts about this for the world and the Google Thought Police in the comments section below. If you guys enjoy these videos, be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification icon, give it a thumbs up, and share it with everybody you know.
Also, check out over 100 hard-hitting designs in the shirt store, and if you want to support more content, hit me up on Patreon or PayPal. All those links will be in the description and in the pinned comment. I'll see you guys in the next heavily censored shadow ban video.